I always believed my neighborhood was ordinary. Quiet streets, trimmed lawns, the hum of distant traffic at night. But lately, something felt off. The air carried a strange vibration, like a low hum beneath the usual sounds of life. Every night at 2:13 a.m. sharp, the streetlights outside my house flickered in perfect rhythm. Not random, a pattern, ... like Morse code. My neighbor's house across the street, the one that always looked too clean, too still, would light up faintly from within, even though I'd never seen anyone go in or out. Curiosity got the better of me. I checked the property records. Nothing. No owner, no listing, not even a postal address. As far as the city was concerned, that house didn't exist. And yet, every night it breathed, a soft pulse of blue light beneath the curtains. Sometimes I swore I saw shapes moving inside. Tall, slender shadows, slow and graceful, like people underwater. But when I blinked, they were gone. I started to wonder, what if the people living among us weren't really people? What if they never wanted to be seen, but had been here all along, just slightly out of focus, hiding behind the smallest distortions in what we call reality? And that's when I began to hear them whisper my name. Maps never lie, or so I thought. I zoomed into every satellite image, every GPS layer I could find. Nothing. Just a patch of grass where the house should have been. But when I stood there in person, the house was right in front of me. A tall white building with glass windows that shimmered strangely, almost pixelated. When I moved my head slightly, parts of the structure disappeared, like it was being rendered in real time by something unseen. It wasn't abandoned. I could feel energy inside it, a vibration under my skin, a pressure behind my eyes. It was as if the house itself was rejecting being noticed. I placed my hand on the gate, and for a split second, my reflection disappeared from the metal surface. Instead, I saw something else. A figure, tall, glowing faintly blue, staring back at me through the reflection. Not from this world, but somehow here. The moment I blinked, it was gone. The wind stopped. The birds were silent. The street felt empty, too empty. That's when I realized something unsettling. This house didn't just hide from the map. It was hiding from us. Or maybe the map was hiding us from it. It happened again. The flicker. Only this time, every light on the street joined in. 2 quick flashes. Then darkness. My phone lost signal. The air turned heavy, like breathing through glass. From my window, I saw movement. The invisible house across the street glowing faintly, as if waking up. The air shimmered around it, bending the light like heat above asphalt. Shapes emerged. Tall, fluid figures walking slowly toward the backyard. Their outlines glowed softly, like silhouettes made of mist and static. I couldn't move. My body felt locked between fear and fascination. Then the lights flickered again. Just twice. When they steadied, the house was gone, completely. Only the empty field remained. No doors, no walls, no gate, just silence. But the strangest part came when I checked my camera footage the next morning. The recording showed me standing at the window, frozen, staring at nothing. No lights, no house, no flicker, except in one single frame, there was a reflection of something behind me. A tall, glowing figure, its eyes bright like twin stars. They didn't want to be seen. But that night, they knew. I had seen them. For weeks after the lights flickered, the house across the street remained invisible, gone as if it had never existed. But the silence it left behind was louder than ever. Every night, around 2:13 a.m., the same time the lights used to blink, I'd hear faint sounds under my floor, not the normal creaks of an old house. These were patterns. 3 knocks, a pause, 2 slow drags, like someone sliding their hand across wood. At first, I thought it was my imagination, or rats, or maybe pipes. But then the whispers began, soft, rhythmic murmurs right beneath where I stood. No words, just tones, almost like 2 people speaking in a language too complex for human ears. I placed my ear to the floor. The whispers stopped. Then, slowly, a new sound emerged, like breathing. It wasn't the kind that came from lungs. It sounded mechanical, echoing, resonant, almost as if something was alive down there. Something that didn't need air but still tried to mimic it. I tapped twice on the floor. 2 taps came back. That was the moment I realized it wasn't just a noise. It was communication. For the next few nights, I recorded the sounds, played them back in slow motion, reversed them, filtered them, until I caught something strange. Hidden in the static was a faint word. My name. That's when I stopped sleeping above that spot. But no matter where I went in the house, the whispers followed, through the walls, up the stairs, sometimes echoing faintly from the vents. It felt like they were trying to speak to me, or warn me, and every time I got close to understanding, the sound would cut, replaced by silence so deep, it felt like the whole world was holding its breath. That's when I realized they weren't beneath my floor. They were beneath everything. I'd moved my bed closer to the window just to avoid hearing the whispers. But that night, something worse happened. Footsteps, soft, deliberate, echoing through the hall. My heart pounded as I stared at my door, the handle reflecting faint moonlight. I told myself it was a dream, but then 3 slow steps, a pause, another. The sound wasn't coming from the hall. It was coming from inside my room. I didn't dare move. My eyes adjusted to the darkness, and I saw it. A faint shimmer in the air, like heat rising from the ground. It moved, slowly, forming the vague outline of a person, or something pretending to be one. Then, in a blink, it was gone, but the footsteps continued, this time above me, on the ceiling. I grabbed my flashlight and shined it up. Nothing, just the quiet hum of night. The next morning, I checked the security cameras again. The same thing as before, static during the exact minute I heard the steps. But one frame, just one, showed an image of the floor bending slightly, as if something invisible had weight. I posted the clip online. Weird glitch in my house. It went viral overnight. Thousands of people said they'd experienced the same thing. Invisible movement, silent rooms, houses that felt watched. That's when I realized it wasn't just me. Whatever these beings were, they weren't confined to my neighborhood. They were everywhere, living among us, watching, observing, and they didn't like attention. That night, the video disappeared from every platform. My account got flagged for unexplained error. But when I checked the comments section just before it vanished, one message stood out, from an account with no profile picture, no name. Stop looking for what doesn't want to be found. It started with my radio. Every time I turned it on, the same faint hiss filled the room, a soft static that shouldn't have been there. But if I listened closely, there were voices hidden within it. Whispering, fading in and out like the tide. They weren't random. They followed me. If I moved to the kitchen, the microwave would hum the same rhythm. In the bathroom, the pipes would vibrate faintly in sync. It was like the whole house was alive, a living network of sound. I tried recording the noise. When I played it back, the words became clearer. A pattern formed, coordinates, then a phrase. We see you clearly. That night, I unplugged every device I owned. Still, the sound remained. Not through speakers, through the air itself. I realized the truth slowly. This wasn't a malfunction, it was communication. They had found a way to speak through frequency, blending into signals humans ignore every day. Wi-Fi, power lines, the low hum of your refrigerator. It was all part of their language, and they had been speaking all along. At 2:13 a.m., always that time, the static grew louder until my entire house seemed to vibrate. Then silence. I stepped outside. The night was clear, still, almost frozen. But when I looked across the street, where the invisible house once stood, I saw something new. A faint outline of a doorway made of blue light hovering in the air. And just for a second, before it vanished, I heard a voice. Calm, familiar. Now you can see us. The static stopped. Everything went quiet again. But from that night forward, every time the world goes still, I can't help wondering if they're still here. Watching through walls we think are solid, living in a frequency we'll never fully understand. After the static stopped, I thought it was over. No more whispers, no flickering lights, no strange sounds. But silence can be more terrifying than noise. Days turned into weeks, and everything around me began to feel too normal. The street was clean, birds chirped. My phone worked again, but I couldn't shake the feeling that someone, or something, was observing every move I made. I tested it, left my blinds half open, facing the empty lot where the invisible house once stood. Each morning, the blinds were closed. Perfectly. No one could have entered. I had cameras on every corner, yet somehow, The footage skipped exactly 4 minutes each night. Then came the mirror incident. I was brushing my teeth when I noticed something wrong with my reflection. A delay. For a split second, my reflection didn't move when I did. It just watched me, its eyes locked, expression unreadable. When it finally caught up, the toothpaste slipped from my hand. That night, I left every mirror covered. But there are things mirrors can't hide. I'd see shapes move in my phone screen when it went dark. I'd catch glimpses of something tall reflected in car windows, gone in an instant when I turned around. I realized they weren't gone. They'd simply changed how they watched. Maybe they had learned from us. Maybe they'd adapted to our technology, our cameras, our eyes. Now they existed somewhere between the physical and digital world, in the gaps, the frame skips, the milliseconds between motion and stillness. I received a message the next morning. No number, no sender, just one line. Don't look at reflections, we're closer there. And that was the moment I stopped seeing them in my mirrors, but started hearing them whisper my name again, this time from inside the phone. They never left. They never had to, because they were never really outside us. They were already watching, from within the things we created to watch ourselves. I woke up to knocking. Not on my door, but my phone. The notification sound repeated again and again until I finally checked it. It was a map notification. Your saved address no longer exists. I stared at it for a full minute. My address, my own home, had been wiped off the digital map. No postal code, no coordinates, no trace. I tried typing it manually. The GPS marker floated in an empty void, just a green field where my neighborhood should have been. Panicked, I ran outside. The street was still there. The houses stood where they always had, except one, the one across the street, the invisible house. It was back, but not the same. The structure shimmered as if wrapped in layers of invisible glass. And the moment I looked directly at it, my phone lost all signal again. I decided to walk closer. Every step felt heavier, like walking through water. The air thickened, sound slowed, time itself bent, and when I finally reached the gate, I realized it wasn't metal anymore. It was light, solid light, humming softly like the static I'd once heard in my walls. A voice spoke, not aloud but inside my head, calm, cold, curious. You shouldn't be here. I froze. The air around me vibrated. The house began to fade, not vanish, but unfold, like paper being peeled into another layer of space. Inside it, I could see shapes, outlines of beings taller than any human, their eyes glowing faintly white. They weren't angry, they weren't even surprised, just aware. I took a step back. The air snapped back to normal. The light vanished. The house disappeared once more. When I got home, I checked my phone again. This time, a new message had replaced the deleted address. Stop searching. You're becoming visible to us. That night I didn't sleep, because for the first time I realized maybe we're the invisible ones, and the world we think is real is only one layer of many. It was a bright summer day when everything changed. Clear sky, kids playing outside, birds flying, and then, at exactly 12 noon, the sky went black. Not like a storm, not like an eclipse. It was instant. 1 second daylight, the next, total darkness. Streetlights flickered on, then off again. The air grew cold, still, thick. Phones, cars, and even watches stopped working. No sound, no wind, just pure silence, heavy enough to press against your chest. Then came the light, a faint glow rising from the ground. Not the sky, blue, like the pulse I'd seen from the invisible house. It spread through the streets, flowing like water, tracing invisible lines that connected every house, every building, every human. I watched it crawl toward me until it reached my feet. When it touched me, the world shifted. For a second, I saw everything. Thousands of translucent figures walking among us, invisible until that moment. They weren't attacking. They weren't hiding anymore. They were just existing, moving calmly through their mirrored version of our world, layered right over ours like overlapping frequencies. Some looked at me, their faces expressionless, but their eyes alive with light. One of them stepped closer, placed its hand against the barrier between us, and I felt a strange warmth spread through me. Then, a voice. The same calm tone I'd heard before. Now you see what we've seen all along. The light faded. The sky returned to normal. Birds sang again as if nothing had happened. But when I looked at the reflection in a car window, I didn't see myself anymore. I saw them, walking in perfect sync with me, step for step. From that day forward, I understood one thing. We never discovered aliens. We simply began to notice the ones who'd already been here, watching us, studying us, living among us in the invisible layer we call reality. 3 days after the sky went black, I received a letter. No return address, no stamps, just a single piece of paper, perfectly folded, lying on my doorstep. The handwriting was neat, precise. Too precise, like it had been printed by hand, not written. The message was short. Stop trying to record them. They already know you. I froze. I hadn't told anyone about my recordings. Not my friends, not even the online forum where I used to share updates. Everything I'd posted had disappeared weeks ago. Still, the letter felt familiar. The paper had that faint hum, the same vibration I'd felt near the invisible house. Later that evening, I went for a walk to clear my head. The world felt normal again, too normal. People walked their dogs, kids played in the park, and the air was filled with that calm evening glow. Then I saw him. A man, standing at the far end of the street, tall, dressed in a dark coat, completely still. I turned away for a moment, and when I looked back, he was gone. I kept walking, a little faster. A few minutes later, I saw him again, this time standing under a streetlight ahead of me. The same coat, the same stillness. When I finally gathered the courage to approach, I noticed something strange. His face looked normal, but his eyes were too bright, like glass reflecting distant stars. "Do I know you?" I asked. He smiled faintly. "You've known us for a long time. You just forgot." The way he said us made my stomach tighten. Before I could say anything, he stepped closer. The streetlight flickered, and for a split second, his body seemed to glitch, like a video buffering. Then he was gone again. On the ground where he stood was another folded note. This one read, "When the world glitches, it's not your eyes, it's us adjusting." That night I couldn't sleep. Not because I was afraid, but because part of me started to believe him. Maybe he wasn't a stranger at all. Maybe he was one of them, walking in the thin space between visibility and illusion, a messenger trying to tell me that the line between our worlds was never meant to be seen. After meeting the stranger, I decided to prove I wasn't losing my mind. I set up cameras. Not just any cameras, but specialized ones that captured thermal, ultraviolet, and motion signatures. If they were there, something would show up. The first night, nothing. The second, still nothing. But on the third night, something strange happened. At exactly 2:13 a.m., all the footage went white. Not blank, white, like every pixel was flooded with light. When it cleared a few seconds later, the angle of the camera had changed, slightly tilted. No one could have touched it. It was mounted high on the wall. The next morning, I slowed down the footage frame by frame, and there it was. One frame, a silhouette, tall, blurred, translucent, almost humanoid, but the proportions were wrong. Its head elongated slightly, arms too long, body faintly glowing blue. The weirdest part wasn't the shape itself. It was what it was looking at. Not me, not the camera. It was looking at another shape, standing right beside it, one that looked exactly like me. For days, I tried to make sense of it. The rational part of my brain said it was just a camera glitch, a reflection, a trick of exposure. But deep down, I knew what it was. They weren't avoiding the cameras. They were controlling them, choosing what we could and couldn't see. Maybe they'd been editing our perception all along, not just through lenses, but through reality itself. That night, all my recordings vanished. Every file, every backup, even the hard drives, wiped clean. Except one, a single video remained, only 3 seconds long. In it, a voice whispered, faint but clear, "Stop filming! Start listening." So I did, and the next time the lights flickered, I didn't reach for a camera. I just listened, and for the first time I understood. They didn't hide because they were afraid. They hid because they were protecting us from something far beyond what we could see. It happened on a Sunday afternoon. The air was calm, sunlight pouring through my living room window. Except I didn't have a window on that wall. At first, I thought I was imagining it. But the light was real, soft, golden, inviting. When I stepped closer, it shimmered like rippling water. I reached out to touch it. My hand passed through. The air on the other side felt cool, dense, almost electric. Through the glowing window, I saw another version of my street. The same layout, same houses, same trees, but the colors were deeper, the air thicker, and the shadows moved slightly slower, as if time flowed differently there. And then I saw them. Dozens of figures walking calmly, their bodies radiant and translucent, like outlines made of light. They weren't alien in the monstrous sense. They looked peaceful, graceful, ancient. Each one glowed faintly blue, their forms bending and reforming with every step. One of them noticed me watching and stopped. Slowly, it raised its hand, and without thinking, I raised mine too. For a heartbeat, our hands met, separated by the thin veil of the glowing window. In that instant, I felt everything: warmth, calm, connection. Not fear, but understanding. Then the light flickered. The figure mouthed something, one word, before the window faded away. Soon, the wall was solid again, the sunlight gone. But the warmth stayed. Since that day, I've been waiting. Not with fear, but with curiosity. Because maybe the truth isn't that they're hiding from us. Maybe they're waiting for us to finally see through instead of just at. And maybe that window wasn't a mistake. Maybe it was an invitation. It began with a shadow. Not outside, but inside my house, right behind the living room curtain. I noticed it one evening when I turned off the lights. The moonlight poured through the window, outlining a faint, shifting shape on the fabric. It wasn't still. It swayed slightly, like someone was breathing behind it. I stood frozen, every instinct telling me to pull the curtain aside, but something deeper whispering, "Don't!" The air felt charged, almost humming, the same familiar vibration I'd learned to recognize. I whispered softly, "Is someone there?" The shadow stopped moving. Then, slowly, it mirrored my head tilt, like a reflection that had learned to act alive. For a long moment, it just stood there. The curtain didn't move. No footsteps, no sound, only stillness and that faint electric hum. I stepped closer. My heart was racing, but I couldn't look away. The shape seemed human, but taller, thinner, its outline flickering like static in weak signal. When I finally reached out to pull the curtain, nothing. The shadow was gone, only moonlight. But as I turned away, I saw something impossible. The curtain's shadow on the opposite wall still held the shape, still standing. Even though the curtain itself was empty, it was as if the shadow had detached from what made it. The next day, I tried to recreate it. Lights on, off, dim, bright, nothing worked. But at 2:13 a.m., the same shadow returned, always behind the curtain, always waiting. I realized then that maybe the shadow wasn't in my home. Maybe my home had become a part of theirs. That night, I didn't try to move closer. I whispered instead, "Can you hear me?" The shadow tilted its head again, and for the first time, I heard a voice, soft as static. From nowhere and everywhere, "You're learning to see." After the shadow, silence itself began to change. It wasn't just the absence of noise anymore. It had texture, weight, rhythm. When the world went still, I could hear the air breathing. At first, it scared me. I thought my mind was playing tricks. Auditory illusions, maybe. But then I noticed the silence wasn't random. It had patterns, tones, and layers, like an unspoken song. I began recording it, not with sound equipment, but with moments of pure quiet. Whenever I sat completely still, the silence seemed to pulse around me, forming vibrations that hummed faintly inside my chest. One night, I closed my eyes and simply listened. Through the stillness, a faint murmur formed, like multiple voices speaking at once, weaving in and out of each other. The language was strange but oddly musical, and then clear as day, one word surfaced: my name. It wasn't frightening. It was calm, like someone calling me home. For weeks I listened. The more I did, the more the silence changed. It began answering questions before I asked them. If I thought, "Are you real?" the hum would rise in pitch. If I asked, "Why are you here?" it would fade into nothing, as if avoiding the answer. One evening, the silence grew deep enough that the world around me blurred. For a few seconds, I felt weightless, suspended in a soundless space where thought itself echoed. And then I heard it again, that same whisper. "You're almost ready to hear us fully." The moment broke, and sound rushed back. The ticking clock, the hum of the fridge, my heartbeat racing. From that day, I stopped fearing the silence, because I realized it wasn't empty. It was communication, waiting for humans to finally quiet their noise long enough to listen. Maybe they'd been talking to us for centuries, but we filled the air with machines, chatter, and chaos. Maybe the secret wasn't how to call them, but how to listen back. The truth came slowly, not as a revelation, but as recognition. Every sign, every whisper, every flicker I'd seen was leading to this. We were never alone, not on this planet, not even within our own homes. It wasn't that they came from another world. They'd always been here, woven into the invisible layers of reality, walking just beside us in frequencies we couldn't perceive. Think of light. We see only a small spectrum, but everything beyond that, ultraviolet, infrared, exists, unseen. Maybe consciousness works the same way. Maybe they're living right beside us, in wavelengths just beyond human awareness. I started noticing subtle differences. People around me sometimes froze mid-sentence, like buffering video. Streetlights flickered when certain individuals passed. Reflections lingered longer than they should. Were those signs that more people were starting to notice them? Or were the boundaries between our worlds thinning? Then came the moment that changed everything. One night, I stepped outside at 2:13 a.m., the hour that had haunted me for months. The air shimmered faintly, and for the first time, I saw both worlds at once. The street was alive with light, beings walking among us, passing through houses, trees, even cars, like gentle specters made of energy. They weren't haunting us. They were existing in harmony, unseen but connected. One of them stopped, turning toward me. Their voice wasn't sound. It was a feeling that resonated directly in my mind. You finally understand. You were never meant to be separate. The light around them pulsed gently, merging with the air until I couldn't tell where they ended and I began. In that moment, I realized the truth wasn't about aliens at all. It was about coexistence, different realities, interlaced like notes in the same song. They never invaded Earth. They simply shared it, silently, patiently, waiting for us to evolve enough to see them. When the vision faded, the world looked the same. Yet nothing felt the same again. Because once you know you're not alone, you never can unsee it. The truth came slowly, not as a revelation, but as recognition. Every sign, every whisper, every flicker I'd seen was leading to this. We were never alone, not on this planet, not even within our own homes. It wasn't that they came from another world. They'd always been here, woven into the invisible layers of reality, walking just beside us in frequencies we couldn't perceive. Think of light. We see only a small spectrum, but everything beyond that, ultraviolet, infrared, exists, unseen. Maybe consciousness works the same way. Maybe they're living right beside us, in wavelengths just beyond human awareness. I started noticing subtle differences. People around me sometimes froze mid-sentence, like buffering video. Streetlights flickered when certain individuals passed. Reflections lingered longer than they should. Were those signs that more people were starting to notice them? Or were the boundaries between our worlds thinning? Then came the moment that changed everything. One night, I stepped outside at 2:13 a.m., the hour that had haunted me for months. The air shimmered faintly, and for the first time, I saw both worlds at once. The street was alive with light, beings walking among us, passing through houses, trees, even cars, like gentle specters made of energy. They weren't haunting us. They were existing in harmony, unseen but connected. One of them stopped, turning toward me. Their voice wasn't sound. It was a feeling that resonated directly in my mind. You finally understand. You were never meant to be separate. The light around them pulsed gently, merging with the air until I couldn't tell where they ended and I began. In that moment, I realized the truth wasn't about aliens at all. It was about coexistence, different realities, interlaced like notes in the same song. They never invaded Earth. They simply shared it, silently, patiently, waiting for us to evolve enough to see them. When the vision faded, the world looked the same. Yet nothing felt the same again. Because once you know you're not alone, you never can unsee it. The invisible house had haunted me for months, appearing and disappearing like a mirage, pulsing with blue light at impossible hours. But that night it didn't vanish. It waited. I felt the hum before I saw it. The air rippled gently, like the atmosphere itself was breathing. The outline of the house shimmered into view, real and solid this time. Every instinct told me to stay away, but curiosity has its own gravity. It pulls harder than fear. I crossed the street. The closer I got, the quieter everything became. Even the crickets stopped. When I reached the gate, if it could be called that, it opened on its own. Light spilled out. Not bright or blinding, but soft and alive, like the glow of a sleeping star. Inside, there were no walls, no furniture, just space, vast, infinite space that looked like it contained the sky itself. The floor beneath me rippled like liquid glass, and with each step, I could see scenes reflected, cities, forests, oceans, as though the house contained fragments of the entire earth. Then I saw them. Figures, tall and radiant, moving gracefully across the room. They weren't startled by me. They had expected me. One approached. Its voice wasn't sound but vibration, shaping words directly in my thoughts. "You've crossed the layer." I asked what that meant, but the being didn't answer directly. Instead, it showed me. Not with images, but feelings. There were worlds stacked like pages of a book, each unaware of the others, existing in the same space, but at different frequencies of perception. We called our layer reality. They called theirs clarity. "You are the first of your kind to step between," the voice continued, "but not the last." The being raised a hand, and the walls around us shifted, forming windows that opened to thousands of versions of Earth, each one slightly different. Some brighter, some darker, some still forming. It wasn't a house at all. It was a bridge. When I finally stepped back outside, the structure dissolved again, like mist caught in sunlight. But this time I understood. The house had never been built. It had always existed, waiting for someone tuned enough to see it. And once you step inside, part of you never truly leaves. After that night, I couldn't stop sensing layers of the world around me. Subtle shifts in air pressure, faint vibrations under my feet, whispers of motion beneath still surfaces. It wasn't imagination. Something lived below us, not underground, but beneath the frequency of what we call real. One evening, while sitting outside, I noticed something strange. The stars above seemed mirrored faintly below the ground, like reflections in invisible water. When I placed my hand on the soil, I felt warmth, rhythmic, pulsing, alive. I began hearing faint echoes, as if the earth itself was breathing words through the dirt. Following that feeling, I hiked deep into the nearby woods where no lights reached. There, I found a clearing where the ground shimmered faintly, like a glass surface hiding something underneath. I knelt and looked closer. Beneath that layer, I saw movement, not worms or roots, but structures, towers of light stretching downward into an unseen depth, as if a luminous world lay parallel beneath our feet. When I touched the surface, it rippled, and suddenly, I wasn't looking down. I was looking through. The beings I'd seen before were there, walking along shining pathways, working with calm precision, their movements synchronized with the rhythms of nature. Wind, waves, even human heartbeat. "This is the foundation," a voice whispered in my mind. "Your world is built upon ours, just as yours will one day hold another." I realized then, Earth wasn't just a planet. It was a layered system of existence, each dimension supporting the next, invisible to those not tuned to see. When I blinked, the vision faded, but the echo of that world stayed beneath my every step, a reminder that the ground we walk on isn't empty. It listens, it remembers, and it breathes with life we've never learned to notice. Since visiting the house and glimpsing the world beneath, my perception changed permanently. I began noticing things others couldn't, patterns in motion, rhythms in randomness, glimmers at the edges of vision. It started small, a streetlight flickering in sync with my heartbeat, birds forming perfect geometric shapes mid-flight, leaves spinning against the wind, not with it. The more I noticed, the clearer it became. Something was watching through everything, not maliciously, more like observation, a presence perceiving through reflections, through ripples, through light itself. One night, during a thunderstorm, I saw it clearly for the first time. Lightning flashed, illuminating the clouds, and for a split second, I saw a massive outline behind the storm, a figure of pure light, its eyes spanning the sky like distant constellations. Then it was gone, leaving behind a silence so deep it felt sacred. Later, while reviewing footage from my window camera, I found a single distorted frame, a faint human silhouette overlapping my own, eyes glowing softly. The data timestamped it at 2:13 a.m., that number again. I finally understood. It wasn't random. It was synchronization. 2:13 a.m. wasn't a time of day. It was a moment of alignment when our world's frequency briefly intersected with theirs. And during that instant, they could see us fully. Everything we couldn't see. Everything we refused to. They watched through water, through reflections, through the small, invisible threads that connect all living things. Maybe they weren't studying us. Maybe they were waiting for us to open our eyes. I don't record them anymore. I don't need proof, because once you realize you're being seen by something far greater, not as a subject, but as a reflection, you stop looking outward for evidence. You start looking inward, and that's where they've always been watching from, not from the sky, but from within the light that makes sight possible at all. For weeks, I tried to forget what I saw, the beings, the light, the silent hum beneath the air. But the truth doesn't fade. It waits, and one night, the waiting ended. It started with that familiar pattern, the streetlights flickering twice, then once. 2:13 a.m., the moment when both worlds touched. Only this time it wasn't subtle. The entire neighborhood shimmered, as if reality itself had become liquid glass. I stepped outside, barefoot, the air cool and vibrating. Across the street, the invisible house stood in perfect clarity, glowing softly, no longer hiding. The gate was open and the hum grew louder, almost like a low chorus of voices calling my name. I crossed the road, heart pounding, not from fear, but recognition. When I reached the threshold, the world seemed to pause. Time slowed until even the falling raindrops hung motionless in the air. Then the doorway appeared. Not physical, not solid, but alive. A thin veil of shifting light, colors flowing like water and smoke at once. Through it I saw glimpses, an endless horizon of luminous cities, skies that bent like mirrors, and beings walking gracefully between shifting planes of existence. One of them stepped forward, tall, radiant, the same being who had spoken to me before. Its voice resonated in my chest. You have seen the spaces between. Now you must decide whether to stay in one. Behind me, my world flickered. Cars, trees, buildings, all slowly dissolving into faint outlines. Ahead of me was pure clarity, humming with energy, alive with purpose. I asked, "Why me?" "Because you noticed," it replied simply. "Most see shadows. You saw the light behind them." Then the doorway began to close. The edges curled inward, like pages folding shut. I had seconds to choose. I took a step forward, then stopped. Because in that instant, I realized something. The doorway wasn't an invitation to leave. It was a reminder to see, to understand that both worlds coexisted, theirs and ours, not separate, but layered, breathing together. So I stepped back, and as I did, the doorway faded. The hum softened. The lights returned to normal. But from that night on, I could still feel it. The pulse between worlds, the silent truth beneath everyday noise. The house disappeared forever. Yet sometimes, when the clock hits 2:13 and the air feels too still to be real, I know it's still there, waiting for someone else to notice. It started quietly, a flicker in the sky, a strange hum on every radio frequency, a pause in the air so deep it felt like the earth itself was holding its breath. At first, people thought it was another glitch, another strange storm or solar flare, but it wasn't. It was synchronization. For the first time in history, every signal, every satellite, every pulse of light aligned perfectly. And in that alignment, the truth revealed itself. Across cities, people looked up and saw reflections in the clouds. Silhouettes made of light, tall and graceful, watching, not invading, not speaking, just watching. Phones, cameras, even mirrors began to shimmer with shapes that weren't ours. And then came the sound. Not words, not noise, but harmony. A tone so pure it vibrated through every object, every mind, every heartbeat. And for one miraculous moment, humanity saw what had always been there. Layers of existence overlapping our own, filled with life. The aliens weren't arriving, they were simply revealing themselves. The world froze. Cars stopped mid-street. People fell silent. Then a single message echoed across every device. Every language, every frequency. We were never hiding. You simply weren't looking. And just like that, the light faded. The sky went still, the world resumed, but nothing was the same. Because after that day, humanity stopped asking if we were alone. We knew, and deep down, we realized the truth. The ones we called aliens had never left. They'd been here, patiently waiting for us to finally look back, and we did.